You are now entering the horror section.
Hello, and welcome back to the Horror Sanctum podcast. I'm Jay with Kellen and TJ, and we're happy to be joined today by award-winning director, actor, writer, and producer, RBG, Mr. Ryan Barton Grimley. Ryan, welcome to the Sanctum.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, guys. I really appreciate it. Good to see y'all.
We appreciate it as well. I've been a fan of yours since 2020 when we talked about Hawk and Rev, and I think I did a review somewhere, which is why you sent me I got the little koozie and I got
Yes,
a and
sir.
stickers. So, and I love the movie, but we'll get to that. So, you've been involved in several movies and television series. Really jumped into the horror scene in 2020 with Hawk and Rev Vampire Slayers, which is an 80s inspired horror comedy. You followed that up last year with your psychological dark comedy thriller. I guess that's the right the right way to describe
Absolutely,
it.
absolutely. It's funny. I
Listen,
think it's funny.
yeah, listen carefully, which is great as well. But I want to start with Hawk and Rev because that's the one I've seen probably like 6 or 7 times now. If you're unfamiliar with the movie, it follows a nighttime security guard and a groundskeeper as they try to alert skeptical townsfolk that hordes of murderous vampires are closing in.
Mhm.
Like I said, you'd actually sent me a Hawk and Rev package with everything. And the poster is in my closet. Whenever I get a bigger spot, it will be hanging up on the wall. I love the film. It's a lot of fun. It's hilarious. You didn't have to buy my love by the swag
Yeah,
that I
yeah,
got. Like I loved it anyway. So it's a love letter to like 80s vampire flicks, right? And I assume that Lost Boys was probably on your mind when writing it. But
big
I'm just
time.
curious, what else spawned this idea and inspiration for Hawk and Rev?
Monster Squad, The Burbs, just kind of fun. Yeah, Big Trouble in Little China, which is not really technically horror, but it's kind of fantasy more. Just kind of that stuff. And I'm a big fan of Edgar Wright. Like I
Yeah,
I love the messing around with comedy with the camera, not just wide shots where people are doing their shtick. I really really like the kind of Brian De Palma camera in comedy. you know, so I don't know. It was just I just wanted to kind of get out of the stuff I had been doing, which was trying to pitch really serious movies to studios because I live in LA. And my brother in law, Ari Schneider, who plays Rev, we have been a two-man improv team for years. So we're very comfortable performing with each other. And I'd written another movie for us called Elijah's Ashes, which was a comedy about homophobia that was barely got any kind of play in 2017. So I was like, I really want to kind of go back to my roots. And my roots are weird because I was born in Zimbabwe and I moved to the US in the mid 80s, right at the high point, in my opinion, of like cheesy, awesome kind of horror movies like Nightmare on Elm Street and all of those things. And, we used to kind of like, I mean, we didn't call it cosplay, but we used to, play Red Dawn. We used to play Lost Boys as little kids, you know what I mean? And we would watch VHS movies that my friend's dad, who lived across from us in the cul-de-sac, and, we would watch all these movies he would get. And, there were just hundreds of them. And, that was kind of our existence. So I wanted to sort of capture something like that, but a grown up left behind version of it.
What's funny is some of your inspirations we've had on the show. Like we had James Pax from Big Trouble. He played
That's
Lightning. We've
awesome.
had him on the show. The guy from Monster Squad, I can't think of his name. He's the one that said he had wore the Stephen King shirt.
Oh
he's the
yeah,
he's the
yeah,
he's the leader, the main
Yeah,
kid.
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. He's the
Yeah.
bossy one. I don't know if he's the
yeah.
leader. He's just the bossy one. But okay, so before I continue on, you mentioned Zimbabwe, and that was in my notes. How did so we just also interviewed Ryan Kruger from South. He's in South
We also
Africa.
had one of the
Big.
Frog Brothers from Lost Boys too.
Yeah, that was too.
Yeah.
How did you? So Zimbabwe. How did you come over here? Like, how did that take place?
So my dad was born in Kenya. My mom was born in South Africa. They met in their early 20s in what was Rhodesia that became Zimbabwe. I was born there. My dad got involved in politics there. And when the government changed over from being Rhodesia, which was like kind of a white apartheid government, into Zimbabwe, we stayed. A lot of European or colonial types kind of left. I mean, but we stayed because he grew up in Kenya where they had an African government since the 50s. He kind of bought in and was like, let's give this a shot. So when they were going to have their first UN mandated election, my dad was helping advise one of the candidates that ran against Robert Mugabe, who ended up becoming the dictator. And that didn't work out too well for us guys. He was not a big fan of that other candidate. And one day they kind of arrested everybody and we packed our stuff and came over here. And luckily enough, a couple years before, we had come out to LA to visit my mom's aunt that none of us had ever met. She was the one person who left and did well, moved to LA. She was sort of, at the time, we all thought she was a movie star. She'd had a couple parts in like some small series, like Gunsmoke and stuff like that in the 60s. And she and her husband had made a life here in Encino, and their kids were all in movies. And we came over here for a wedding in '81. And so when we had some downtime from the wedding, my parents and I drove up the coast with my little baby brother Justin, and they were like, we ended up in the Santa Barbara area, which they call like the American Riviera. It's insane, so beautiful. And my parents literally said on this beach at sunset, if we ever leave, we have to come here. So when we left, we literally picked our stuff up. What we had could fit in some bags, and some family members packed our furniture a couple weeks later when they could, when the military had left the house. I mean, we had a little like suburban house, not like we were some fancy family or something. It was very odd. And we moved to Carpinteria, which was this little tiny beach town that's like out of Stranger Things or something, into this cul-de-sac. And like, my exposure to movies up to that point was basically the drive-in in Zimbabwe. So I had seen like anything that was on rerun in Southern Africa, which I'm sure Kruger could probably relate to. There's just, I think he's younger than me, but there's just not a lot of media. So when I came here and it was like the beginning of the VHS boom where you could literally watch anything, I mean, I just OD'd, man, like on just all media, like everything on VHS, TV, Kung Fu Theater, Chips, A-Team, like whatever I could just. And I don't know, man, that's what happened.
Yeah, that's wild. That is like, when I decided to ask that question, I'm like, he probably just like, oh, this happened, just moved. That was not a story that I would have guessed at all. That's wild, man. I'm glad you made it out. Glad you're here.
Yep, I'm happy. Good to be here.
Hawk and Rev, like after watching it again, I'm like, it just feels like one big inside joke, but it's like a joke that we're all in on, right?
Totally.
And like, one of my favorite parts is what's behind me. It's just the secret steak stuff. It is so fucking funny. You just pull out and say, like, what is this? My secret steak. Like, why the hell is a secret? Like, it's brilliant. Like,
talk about callbacks too, to keep going back to that never gets old.
Yeah. So that was part of the gag of our improv team. We had this improv team called Double Pistols, and we basically we're big fans of cop shows, but like really cheesy ones. So we would ask the audience of a suggestion of either a crime, a victim, or a criminal, and then we would just try to build out that world, and it always ended with like awful interrogations and like just callbacks, and our main thing was callbacks. So I was trying to really capture that in a movie, which is very structural and can really go wrong. But I figured if we did it very lightly, it would be fun,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. I mean,
make
it
it
works well.
different. Yeah.
Post credits. Everybody's kind of being candid. Ari says it is 2030, and
Yeah.
it takes a really long time to make an indie movie. How long did it take you to make Hawk and Rev?
Hawk and Rev took probably 4 years for it to be released, man. Shoestring budget.
Yeah.
Listen carefully, same thing, man. Like, it was, these are things we've made with like favors and crew members around here who are not working on commercials or whatever, actors that we knew.
Did you
Yeah.
self-finance, or did you just raise
Self.
money, or?
100% self,
Oh, wow.
but spread over 4 years.
Yeah.
A few grand here, a few grand there, lots of favors.
So were you shooting principal photography over 4 years too, or was a lot of that the post and then trying to find distribution?
All of the above. So the way I usually do is I'll do like a 2-week shoot, literally like 5 to 6 days, take a day off, same thing, edit when I can around whatever's happening in life and family and trying to work and stuff. And then once there's something there, I'll go back and try to build out more. And so Hawk and Rev, we did 3 sets of 2-day pickups where we added, and like that whole green screen kind of, camera behind the camera thing at the end of Hawk and Rev. We couldn't afford to get a green screen at first. So like we had to wait. And then, we did some of the gore and then went back at it a couple times, and then, added VFX score as well. And that took a while because one of the ways we've been able to keep the budgets really low is to always, well, first of all, make a fun project that everyone kind of wants to work on, that they relate to. And then I'm like, listen, we don't have a lot of money. Well, we want to pay you something, but we also don't have a timeline. And people are like, oh yeah, dude, I got you. Like, I'll put a couple hours on this thing when I'm on the couch, and that has really worked for us intensely. And that's kind of how I've edited. And Matt Latham, who's the editor of Victor Crowley, which is a pretty big movie, worked on Listen Carefully.
Oh, wow.
And you can see, I'm a good editor. He's a great editor. And so between the two of us, was time spread out, like we got a pretty layered, different movie. And same with Hawk and Rev. And like, he did a final kind of pass at it where he was like, you gotta double down on the style, man. It's too episodic right now. And so we went back in there and spent 4 or 5 days in a room doubling down on the style, and we cut 15 minutes out, but then doubled things up and then added like that tagline scene. Yeah. We extended that to where, like, if you're a fan of those movies, it's just like the best thing,
Yeah, I think the kinetic pacing and kind of the way you cut adds to the comedy and to the action. And I think it really helps with this kind of buddy action comedy type thing.
Thank you, man.
You can definitely tell you love like buddy cop films too.
Yeah, and once you said, "Oh yeah, we've been an improv group for years," that really comes through in your your rapport together, I think, on screen too. So,
and then I guess your family, right?
Yeah. And so, like, in Listen Carefully, my wife Simone plays my wife. This is the first time I've been able to talk her into acting in one of my movies. She's like, no, man, like, we'll see how that works.
She's only in like what, 3 scenes, I think.
Yeah.
Mostly your voice.
Yeah.
One of the other funny scenes in Hawk and Rev is when you're watching porn, and he's like, "You watching porn?" He's like, "You're like, it's public domain."
Yeah.
But it's porn. He's like, it's public domain. He just close like whatever. You just close. It's hilarious. Is there any plan for a Blu-ray release or a DVD release at all?
There was a DVD that came out. Our distribution because of COVID got super messed up. I've been harassing. I'm not going to say the name of one particular company that I would love to do a Blu-ray release. That's done some pretty cool ones, but they have not relented yet.
But
But
I don't know who
I
you're
might
talking
do
about,
it.
but Arrow would be a good one.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Hell, even Trauma. Like I could see this being a Trauma movie.
Totally,
Yeah.
totally. And Lloyd Kaufman actually a couple times commented on the trailers out in social media, which that like blew my mind.
Let's
I
get
love
our bud
Toxic
Justin
Avenger.
Beam on this thing, and let's get him connected with some of the people he works for.
He's on Shout.
Yeah.
Is he with Shout Factory?
He does a
Or
lot of
Screen?
Shout Factory, yeah.
Okay,
We'll make it happen. We have that power.
that's awesome. You guys are amazing.
I just
love
want it for myself. Screw everybody else. Just give me one Blu-ray copy. I'll be good.
I want a director's commentary.
Yeah.
Yes,
With
with Ari on there too, because he's hilarious.
oh yeah, that I mean that would just be a movie itself, right? Just you guys going back and forth. All right, so let's talk about Listen Carefully, which came out last year.
Yeah.
When a troubled assistant bank manager, Andy McNeary's baby daughter goes missing, he must follow the instructions on of a mysterious voice on the other end of a baby monitor to save her before she disappears forever. What a fucking fever dream of a movie. I'm assuming it's fueled by anxiety and guilt. And did you become a father when you started writing this?
Yeah,
Or,
yeah,
okay.
before some years before, and so it is actually based on an anxiety nightmare that I had. So I suffered anxiety most of my life. Part of it was where I grew up, right? And that kind of crazy world, and then coming here and feeling severe like cultural kind of disconnection. Which I think actually is added to my work. But as a kid, it's a pain in the neck. But like, like, uh, so we were at this Mexican restaurant in Carpinteria where my folks live, and my middle brother, everyone was congratulating him. It was a big family dinner, and what a great hands-on parent he is with his new child. And then quickly turned to the fact that I was such an anxious person with my first daughter, I couldn't even hold her. I was afraid to like break her, and I just like really just riddled with anxiety about even being a dad and like being able to provide and all these things. And you know, this is 6 7 years after I'd been through that period, but it was still really sore. And I went home and went to sleep on, you know, a couple of margaritas and very spicy food, and had this crazy anxiety nightmare about, you know, quite a lot of what's in the movie. And I woke up and I was like sweaty and like heart racing, and I was like, holy shit. And you know, I tried to go back to sleep, and it just was not working. So I started writing a bunch of it down. And finally, you know, a couple hours later, it subsided and I kind of went back to sleep. But I was, in retrospect, having a crazy panic attack kind of in sleep and then out of it, I think, which I don't even know how that's scientifically possible. But a couple weeks later, I was talking to a friend, telling him the story. He's like, "That's a crazy story, dude. You should write like a short story about that." Went back, you know, to my little home office bunker and just tried to write the frame of what it would look like if it were a feature. Kind of broke it out, and then you know, it was like 80% of a feature. And I was like, oh, holy shit, this is like a really kind of Hitchcockian, but with like Jacob's Ladder or something. And I was like, this is totally different than anything I could do. How could I make it funnier? How could I make the intrusive voices also a character so that they're not just like in the guy's head? And then I thought of like the baby, you know, making the baby monitor hundreds of voices is, or the main protagonist, as opposed to like just this guy losing his baby and people trying to extort money and all this stuff. And then it just kind of built from there. And I remember, I pretty quickly blew out a draft and cleaned it up and gave it to Ari, who, does literally all the voices. I mean, there's like 3 lines of ADR total in all of his performance. It's crazy. That was all done on the set. He was like standing off camera with a little microphone. So creepy. And the first time he read it, he was like, "Oh man, I don't know. Like this thing is really awful. Like this line where you talk about taking the little baby's finger off with pliers." He's like, "I am not on board with that, dude." And I was like, "I totally hear what you're saying, and you love comedy and love to make people laugh. And this is the other side of it, man." you know? And with some arm wringing, he finally was like, "Fine, let's do it. If you let me get like really crazy and maniacal with the monitor voice, I'll do it. If I can play all the voices." And I was like, "Better than that, you can also play the cop, please. It will be a great like, you know."
So was he the deeper monitor voice to come in when he got picked up the second monitor as well?
Yep, yep,
Okay.
yep.
And like us as an audience, when he comes up as the cop, we're like, okay, he's the voice. Like we know that. And I love the contrast between this and Hawk and Rev. And like,
I watched them both today back to back, and and that is a wild experience, especially seeing people pop up like, "Oh, the janitor's a vampire, though."
Yeah. So I've worked with all those actors. Like they're all people I really know. They're all friends. That's what it made it really fun.
Yeah, doing stuff with your friends is what makes it worthwhile. Like I used to book music here in town, book shows for bands, and the reason I did that is because I had a couple friends in bands, so it was like a little reunion every time we had a show. But
yeah,
it definitely makes things more fun. I don't. Okay, so this is still a new movie, and spoilers. Like we suck at spoilers, and you may not want to talk about this, and if not, fine. Was it? It was all a dream, I assume. After reading and watching it a few times, and then it almost felt like you could almost go Groundhog Day with it.
Yeah, 100%.
Because it starts over, right? Like he could just be in this time loop.
Yeah.
Is it intended to be a dream or?
Absolutely. So my concept is that, it's like a Greek tragedy, dude. It doesn't end. You know what I mean? And the anxiety of being a parent never ends. Like I don't know if you guys are parents, but I imagined at one point I was like, I could be a 90-year-old man. I'm still going to worry about my kid. Like it's never going to end. So that's kind of what I wanted to play with and just, kind of just die on that hill. You know what I mean? And restart it multiple times so that it was. I'm a big fan of that film Funny Games, and I love like how in the original one I don't know if it's in the remake, but it's definitely in the original one where he uses the remote to rewind the actual reality of the movie. And I just felt like that was so weird and cool. And I still wanted to get the kind of redemptive arc and have him like deal with being a fraudulent piece of garbage and like cut up the cards and make peace with his wife and like hug the baby and like connect. But then I was like, that's too easy to end that way. That's like Lifetime. I was like, I can't do that. Like,
yeah, I like the ending. I like the ending you chose. And like I said, I just kind of like step away from the movie and just kind of think that happens every night to him, which just makes it more horrifying.
Yeah. Exactly. Then it's like Hellraiser. You know what I mean? It's like literally Hellraiser in your brain, which is frightening.
Yeah, it's very surrealist. Like all the little glitches with kind of the bright green where you kind of going in between in and out of reality. I was curious though, like almost every time it swaps that way, suddenly your character's like covered in blood, and we don't ever really see a scene where he kills anybody or anybody's killed in front of him. Did you have like a concept of what was going on with that, or was that just to show his mental state?
Well, we kind of both, but we have this concept where, in the beginning, he's chased by these kind of giant baby men.
Yeah.
And the idea was that
Little baby men. Yeah.
little baby man, like I love that scene in Old Boy, the hammer scene. And I
Oh
kept
yeah, yeah, yeah.
thinking, like, what would it be like if Andy had an Old Boy hammer scene with these giant baby men? And like, we were too low budget to actually do that to where it would be believable in any way. So I still wanted it to kind of be in there, but also, mess with the audience and be like, wait, is he hallucinating this, or has he potentially killed his family because of the stress? And I wanted to really kind of put that in there, as not as a red herring, kind of as a red herring,
Yeah, there
kind of
was
mess with
definitely a
people.
turn about 2/3 of the way in where it's like, oh shit, did he kill
Yeah.
his daughter and that's why he has this guilt, or
It's
his
pretty dark,
wife?
but that's pretty dark.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, 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 yeah. No, no, and I was like, I don't want to show anything like that. I don't want to show the fantasy, but I'm okay with some aftermath that might kind of imply the violence. You know what I mean? I don't
Yeah.
know. I'm weird about kids in horror
Right.
unless it's like fun. Once you're an older teen, you kind of get what you get, right?
Right. You've been tainted by the world by then.
Yeah, 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 yeah. That's it for you, man. So you got to live with what you've become. But when you're innocent, I felt like maybe it was too much. And also that could be kind of his like fantasy, like his escapist fantasy of like how do I get out of this jail that I've created for myself,
Well,
you
clearly
know?
he stole the janitor's hammer for some
Yeah,
reason.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. I love that actor. Man.
He's a good
Richard
actor.
Gaylor.
How'd you
He's
meet
really
him?
good. So I met him in the very first acting class I took in LA as like a
What
young,
method of acting were you studying?
it was like the most pretentious, like Strasberg method acting class. And this guru woman ran it. And like her big claim to fame was, coaching Ben Stiller and Permanent Midnight and Jim Carrey and this thing and like, and you're all doing these weird exercises in one room. It's like an insane asylum, man. It's like 12 monkeys. And I did a scene with that guy, and then we ended up workshopping a play called A Prayer for My Daughter, which is a funny title considering we're talking about Listen Carefully. And we just became friends. And I was always like, if I can get him in any movie, I will. And he played a sheriff for a second in Elijah's Ashes, which was, dare I say, even more low budget than these movies. But yeah.
I'm curious what some of your since Hawk and Rev is definitely owes a lot to like 80s and 80s vampire type movies. What were some of like your points of reference for that type of movie other than the obvious Lost Boys had to be in there, right? Like what were some of your inspirations for the style of vampire film you wanted to make?
The style, I mean, a lot of it was built around the comedic like misdirection gag, to be honest. And I like the vampires and Lost Boys. Like I really like them. Um I don't know, but I kind of like vampire. I like all different kinds. Um but it was more about what we could really afford, really, to be honest. Like, what we could really do, how quick we could do it, and kind of I like that Catherine Bigelow
Near
movie.
Dark, yeah.
Yes, like that's a really cool, weird style. But I want like the idea for Hawk and Rev was, Lost Boys meets Napoleon Dynamite or Dumb and Dumber, but like we still wanted that kind of, I don't know, we wanted it to be a little gross. That's why we had kind of, all of the blood with Jasper, and like, I don't know if in his lair there's like quite a lot of blood. A lot of it didn't make it into the final cut of these like inserts of his place where he was doing like infusions and all this stuff in his mom's basement. But we were, again, I mean, we shot the majority of that movie in like 2 weeks. It was insane with a crew that's like a documentary size
Right.
crew.
Were
You
you
know,
shooting like in sequence or just location
yeah,
to
yeah,
location?
yeah. We kind of like we try to do in sequence, but then we would also kind of batch stuff together for a location sequence, which I really, really helped as an actor. And I think as a director, it kind of really helped tonally, kind of the transitions were more, because we don't have playback, we don't have any of that stuff, man.
Mm,
So we're
yeah.
kind of like, sometimes we'll do a take and be like to the 3 or 4 person crew, like, what do you think? What's it's
Right.
like,
Do we need
should
to
we
get
move
coverage
on?
or are we good? Move on.
Yeah, are we gonna go get lunch? Like,
Wow.
that's kind
Well,
of where it is.
it
Yeah,
definitely pulls together well, and just to see the diametric difference from watching them
yeah,
literally like 5 minutes apart,
yeah.
starting with Hawk and Rev, and just seeing like a buddy comedy, irreverent, all the kind of comedy I like. I used to do improv. I love that kind of comedic. Just the out there, nothing's off limits, right? To just go for
100%,
the
man.
gag and keep hitting the gag.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
we cut so much stuff out. Like, you know, I mean, so we finished the movie in 2020. Like, we were already just okay. So we were submitting at the end of 2019, and we got into Fanospoa in Brazil to premiere in April 2020, which didn't happen, of
Great
course.
timing, right?
Yeah, perfect timing. I mean, COVID totally screwed the release of this movie. We would have loved to take that thing on a tour or done some stupid weird stuff with it. But we definitely cut some stuff because of like the PC police kind of thing that was happening with some people who worked on the movie. And I don't know. I regret actually doing that now. I'm kind of like, it wouldn't have mattered, man. It mattered to them then, but now who cares? Like, I don't know. Things change and like, I don't know. But it is what it is.
Yeah,
Like,
the PC police was very strong around 2020. Like there's a lot of
yeah,
heightened feelings
yeah,
about everything back then. So
yeah. I
I'd
mean,
love
we
to
had
see the
like,
unrated director's cut.
yeah, yeah. There's definitely some stuff that I swore would never see the light of day with certain people. So, but you never know.
Right.
Yeah,
But to see that irreverent type of comedy and then to see the much more serious tone of something underpinned by uh a real everyday human type thing of worrying about your kid, and yeah, maybe he did some shit he shouldn't have been doing,
yeah.
skimming off the top just to make ends meet for his family. You can almost, reason it out. You don't really know what his whole backstory is, but you're in his anxiety with him, the way that the story is framed. You're always with that character. So no matter what shitty things he might have done before we step into the story with him, you're always kind of rooting for him, right? And especially after his kids gone missing and been taken.
That was
It
my
been,
hope.
yeah.
You know. Yeah,
So
yeah. Because I mean, at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, he's skimming a bit. Like, I mean, you can rationalize it somewhat. And if he's not like really hurting anybody, was he hurting a corporation? Like,
right.
there's some gray area there for sure. And I mean, I'd be afraid to do it, but he clearly felt so desperate. He was like, "Fuck it, I got
Well,
to
it's
do
not
it."
like he was going out and buying a new car or anything either.
No,
Right.
no,
It seemed
no. I
like
mean,
low
it's
amounts
yeah,
intentionally.
yeah, yeah. And I had read about some uh I think this was part of in my brain when I was having the dream too. Around that time, some guy had gotten busted, and he had literally created some algorithm in the back end of the computer system of some major bank where he was skimming like a millionth of a penny off of all these
I
transactions,
remember
and
that
then
story. Yeah.
it turned into millions of dollars. And so that was kind of flowing around in there too.
It's just like
Yeah.
when we get our credit card numbers stolen now. Like the last time mine was stolen, it was just like $1 here on an online gambling site, like $1 there. Like they just tease it enough until
Yeah.
they realize we're not noticing. And then they're like, okay, here's $400 at Walmart.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
to see if it works. And then if they get away with it, then yeah, I've had that happen to me twice.
Same.
The last time was 2 days before Christmas and I had to totally close down my accounts. It
Oh,
was a mess.
Yeah, those porn sites will get you every time anyway.
Every time.
Every time.
Charlie
Okay.
Sheen is to blame for mine because he
is
was
he?
going through that wild patch and like the tiger
Oh,
blood stuff. So like I had ordered a blood bracelet, and shortly after my number was stolen, and I was like, that's the only thing. Like I was
You
I was
never buy
racking my
blood
brain,
diamonds or blood bracelets, Jay.
or tiger blood bracelets. And I'm like, damn it, Charlie.
And as soon as he got your money, he was like, winning.
winning.
Hashtag winning.
Exactly. Oh my God. That's an era. The tiger blood.
Right.
Oh, that should be in Hawk and Rev too.
Well, you could like
Oh,
Hawk and Rev 2 Tiger Blood, and you can fight were tigers.
totally.
Why
We're
not?
tigers. Love that. Yeah, that's awesome, man.
Well, I'm gonna shift to Kellen and let you experience his Fast Five thing that he likes
Yeah.
to do.
Good luck.
So anybody that watches our or listens to our show knows that I am the noob of the group, so I don't have as big of a horror repertoire. I haven't seen as much, so I figured it would be a little more fun if I could just do like a little aside or something different, and that's where Kellen's Fast Five came from. It's the best I've got. Where I'm going to do 5 questions back to back, just first answer to pop in your head. We'll go with that and move
Awesome.
on. So, are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Question number 1. As an actor slash director, which one do you think would be more interesting? Acting for your favorite director or directing your favorite actor?
And your favorite actor
think,
and director can't be yourself. That's
yeah.
I've already done it.
I think it. I used to think it would be fun to be the actor for your favorite director, but I really think now it might be really fun to direct your favorite actor.
Just kind of let them do their thing and see how they portray the character.
Yeah, like really let them loose on something with like a lot of meat on it. You know?
Good answer.
Yeah.
All right, number 2. As a director, would you rather have an unlimited budget or complete creative control?
Complete creative control, 100%. That is all I've ever tried to do. And it's ruined many pitches of mine to major Hollywood / streamer things. And I don't know, man. I like what I like, and I kind of, yeah, I don't know, but I'm happy. I've made things I really like, you know.
Yeah, and I've asked that question. That's probably the only question I've repeat asked to somebody else that was also a director, and they had the same answer. So I feel like creative types want to have freedom to be creative. So it makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, number 3. What horror movie or franchise do you find yourself pulling the most inspiration from?
Oh boy. I'm a big fan of Nightmare on Elm Street. I love that franchise. I love how cheesy and operatic it is. I really do.
What's your top 3 in order?
Top 3? Oh geez. I don't know. I really like the first 2, and I kind of like the one that Sam Bayer made. that was like the remake one that died and everybody thought was horrendous. But I kind of, there's something weird and compelling about it because he's also the dude who did like the Smells Like Teen Spirit Nirvana video.
So
Oh,
you
really?
say the
He was like this-
remake?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So-
the one with the guy from Little Children.
First of all, go ahead and give everybody your address for the hate mail. But I have said on this show,
It's online. Bring it on, people.
I've
Let's
said on
do
the
this.
show numerous times, if the originals didn't exist, that movie wouldn't have been shit on as much as it was. Because
I
we
agree.
have in our head what Freddy Krueger is, who he is. It's Robert Englund. It's always going to be. So that
And
ruined
campy.
us from enjoying anything else, right?
Yes.
Like,
Yeah,
it's not a terrible movie when you take it away from the franchise.
agreed.
I said what I
mean,
said.
I was gonna say Halloween, but like I don't know. Everyone says Halloween.
That's absolutely fair. All right, question number 4. As a writer, do you think there are still new scary stories to tell, or is everything just a retelling or reshaping of the same stories that have already been told? That's a
Oh
deep
my God.
philosophical question.
There will never be an end to the horrors that can be told.
We've seen
all
that, and
the-
it's only February in 2025.
Oh my God! All the new tech, all the AI stuff. I mean, can you imagine how much new horror is going to come out about that? Like chatbots and all this crazy shit, you know, impersonating people and allegedly, you know, there's going to be Tesla robots in 2 years, like in very rich people's houses. This is ripe for horror. I don't know, like. Also, the way the world is becoming so small and everybody's kind of, you know, interacting. I don't think there will ever be an end to the amount of horror there is, man.
I absolutely agree with you 100%.
I agree
This
too.
next
I was
one-
at the DMV earlier and I saw tons
There you
of
go.
horror right there.
Just being there is horror.
Yeah. The next time you go to write, you'll just turn on CNN and just pick a random story.
Yeah,
That's
That's
terrifying.
a horror
Like-
film. 90 minutes at the DMV and just
yeah. Starts in the parking lot,
I
like those
lived it.
parking lots. They're like extra small. There's not enough room. Cars can't pass each other, so people already want to murder each other in the lot, man.
right.
The touch screen.
And
on the
that's where
kiosk
they
isn't
do the
recognizing your
driving
inputs.
test to make you
Yeah.
try and park in those little parking spots.
Oh,
All right.
Yeah.
Last question, and probably the hardest question I've ever asked anybody.
okay.
UCLA Bruins win a national championship, or USC never wins another national championship?
USC never wins another championship. I
He's
am
a Notre Dame
graduated-
fan. That's why he likes that answer.
I went to UCLA and I was a Notre Dame football fan when I was a teen.
Hey,
Yeah. So no, it's the University of Spoiled Children is what we say here in LA. So
That fits so well.
I would be
That's
so
accurate.
happy if Pete Carroll got fired next week in his NFL job, and UFC if their stadium got condemned and they couldn't play football next season. I would be the most happiest boy that ever lived.
I mean, they're still playing at the Coliseum, I think, and they have been on the verge of condemning that place forever. So it's condemnable.
Fingers
It's,
crossed.
yeah, maybe like a rock movie with like the San Andreas Fault. It'll just be the the San Andreas 2, the USC football team. Yeah, that would be fun. Yeah.
All right. I got 2 more quick questions, then we'll close up shop. Well, one's not a
Yeah.
question. One is just a statement. Ari's IMDb picture looks like TJ Miller. Tell him he should probably change that. He looks exactly like TJ Miller in that picture.
It's so crazy, dude. Like so many times, we've went to festivals and stuff and people are like, oh my God, I love you. And, I don't know, name a TJ Miller movie.
Silicon Valley. Kelly and I actually met
Yeah.
him outside a comedy club. We waited, came out. He was the nicest guy. He was baked as shit. But he's like, I didn't know you guys were
always.
out here. Like, yeah, man. He signed whatever we put in front of him. Like, it's fantastic. So, one quick question that we'll roll out. Who you have a favorite director? I'm just curious. Like, is there someone out there that really lifts you up? Like mine was like David Lynch, Cronenberg. Like those are mine. Like Spielberg.
Yeah.
But who's your favorite director? Not even necessarily one that inspires you the most, but just one like whenever they put something out, you're gonna watch it.
I mean, Cronenberg, I'll always watch his movies. Weirdly, I love Spielberg's movies just because it reminds me of the 80s, you know. But I really like Michael Mann, like, which is, I was trying to get some of that in the cinematography and listen carefully and get that kind of like weird, modern, disconnected kind of vibe that he's able to get in a lot of stuff. No, I mean, I always watch Cronenberg's movies just because they're so weird, you know.
What's your favorite Cronenberg flick?
The one with the what is it? The little spawny kid. What the
Eraserhead?
heck is? No,
That's
the
Lynch.
the
That's Lynch. Spawny Kid.
what's the one with the little those little creatures that impersonate the kids in
Oh, The Brood?
yeah, The Brood.
The Brood.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Freaking love that movie, man. Like that thing. I will say one director I really love, and I don't know why he didn't make more movies, is the guy who did Let the Right One In, that Swedish director.
Yeah.
Oh, such a great film.
Yeah. I mean, that DP, Hoyte Van Hoytema, went on to do Nolan stuff, all these crazy, huge movies. But like, I think he made one other movie, and like, that's a really great horror movie.
Oh yeah.
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 I wonder why that is. Some people just like one and done sometimes. Like whenever we watch Joe Bob, like there's an actress who's in this movie, she's fantastic, and she never acted again. It's weird, but all good answers. All right, so that's it for this
I'm
episode.
curious what your favorite Michael Mann movie was, though.
I love Thief. But I really like I weirdly like that Miami Vice movie, the one that's all digital and gross and
With
you know
Colin Farrell and Jamie Foxx. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I don't know, man. This thing I heard, Scorsese said this thing a really long time ago, and I remember reading it as a teen, I think, in like Rolling Stone, and he said that there are no bad movies. There's just movies you either like or you don't like, and he'll watch literally anything. And I just kind of like I'll watch almost anything if it keeps my attention.
He obviously hasn't seen Mickey's Mousetrap.
Yeah, I was gonna say like I'm that
That's
way
pretty bad.
too. I'm
Pretty
that way
bad.
too, but there's definitely some bad movies out there. Like
Yeah. There's some horrifically bad series now. And like a bad movie is like, 90 minutes, but these series are like 8 hours long. Like, dude, like
we just
what?
watched the one on Netflix, No Good Deed with Ray
Oh
Romano.
yeah.
Like it
Yeah.
starts out great, and then like by the third or fourth episode, you're just like, okay,
I
let's
would
wrap it
say
up.
there's nothing worse than watching something that grabs your attention and fails the landing, series or movie. Otherwise, if you invest that much time in it and then the last 10 minutes just that may be worse than just watching a bad movie.
Well, it's like the
Yeah.
last season of Lost.
Oh,
Yes.
Well, they got canceled. Same thing with Young Sheldon. We just watched Young Sheldon straight through, and they got canceled. And you can tell they got canceled during that season because the last episode is so weird and clunky, and the whole season they're just like pushing everything. Like you can just feel like we gotta get it. We gotta wrap this up. Got to wrap this up. So
And the
yeah,
actors are just phoning it in.
yeah, just give them
I like that series.
Another
That's
season.
a good series, dude.
Young Sheldon.
Yeah.
Yeah, we enjoyed it. They just biffed that ending for me.
Yeah.
All right. That's it for this episode. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and to wherever you're listening to this podcast. Follow us on Instagram, join our Facebook group, follow us on TikTok. Amazon Music, we have a playlist featuring music and artists from all our episodes. So do that as well. And come back next week for St. Patrick's Day when we chat about the Jennifer Aniston classic, Leprechaun, with our pal Ian Shannon. Ryan, thank you so much for joining us. You take a minute and tell everybody where they can find you, your films, anything you got coming up.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for having me. It was a absolute pleasure. Seriously, you guys are the best. You can find me anywhere on any platform, social media. I'm all over the web. Ryan Barton Grimley, on all the different social media things. You can check out all my movies. They're on basically any app you have. They're on there. Check them out. We'll get a penny or two or something like that, and we will appreciate it. And we'll make a new movie. And there's a couple movies in the works. I'm gonna try to make a movie with my daughter who's 14 years old who has started acting for the last few years, and she's dynamite, man. And so I'm going to try to make a really awesome horror movie that incorporates demonic possession and vampires.
Nice.
Is she gonna get possessed, or is she gonna be a vampire?
Hey,
or
spoilers,
both?
man. Spoilers.
Have to wait and see.
You might have spoiled it.
And if you Google RBG, he's the gentleman one.
Yeah,
He's
that's
not
me.
the dead
He's
judge
not
lady.
Ruth.
I'm not the dead judge with the weird collar.
I'm sure you are, but one more quick question. Are you familiar with the Addams family and their movies?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You can follow in their footsteps. Like, they're doing pretty well.
Yeah.
And I'm not, what you've done is same quality to me. I
Yeah,
would say.
no,
Like,
I agree.
I
So,
appreciate that,
they
man.
do that all themselves
they're
too,
awesome.
so.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, I literally want to make movies with my family, so it's a family business. We all kind of have different interests, but we all kind of like weird horror, and we like movies. And so I don't know, why not? You know,
Why not?
Right.
what else are we gonna do? Go bowling or something? I
Right.
mean, we do
Spend
go
time
bowling,
together.
so-
Like, real quality. Play a board game. Get out of here.
Thanks, guys.
No,
Appreciate
absolutely,
it.
dude. Thank you so much. It was a lot of fun. Like I said, we started this podcast 2 years ago, and we all wrote down like guests we wanted, and you were on there from the get because of Hawk and Rev. So I'm glad we finally got it worked out where we did it. It was a lot of fun.
Super honored.
Come back anytime, and we look forward to whatever comes next. All right, signing off. I'm Jay with Ryan, Barton Grimley, Kellen, and TJ. And until next time,
Keep it spooky.
and don't forget your secret steak.
Right.
That's right.
I like a secret steak, but STEAK.
Right.
Never learned from
Just a
that.
little extra steak.
Right.
All right,
Yeah,
man, we
thanks,
appreciate
guys.
it.
Thanks for coming on, man, and come
Of
back
course.
anytime. We love your stuff.
We'll drop this on the 10th, March 10th. So
Perfect.
and we'll tag you and all that.
Yeah,
I make,
please do. Please do.
I make I have like a schedule I do every day. So Monday's going to be your picture, then Tuesday's going to be a reel, Wednesday's going to be a picture, then a reel. Like there's
So
going to be
his-
something every day. So
His
we'll be wearing
show's
you
going to
out.
be the Ides of March week then.
Ooh, I like this. I
Very
love
murdery
this.
day.
Yes. Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it. It was lovely to meet you
were,
guys.
I guess you were safe. You said you're in LA. No fire
Yeah.
issues where you are.
Well, I mean, actually, Richard, who played the janitor in The Vampire, I mean, his place burnt down. It's
Oh
crazy.
shit.
Yeah, it
That
was
sucks.
pretty crazy. They got out with like, a bag of dirty clothes, a cat, and a computer. Fucking
Wow.
insane, man.
Yeah, I've
mean,
seen
it's
so,
like
so
5
many of my
miles from
friends
here.
out there have had been affected.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, we could see it glowing from here in West LA, but I mean, we're safe, and everybody was like sending us messages, and we're like, we're wearing masks because we can't breathe, but like we're safe, thankfully. But I don't know, it's so weird.
It's not the same thing, but where I live, there was a gas plant across the hill from me, and it was hit by a tornado and exploded. And it
Holy
is so
mackerel.
surreal to
Yes,
see something that looks like the sunrise at 10 o'clock at night.
yeah, totally. I took a photo at 1 a.m., man, because I write late at night, because there's no other time to do it really for horror, right?
Right.
So I walked outside and I was like, holy shit, look at that. It's like, the sunrise. And my wife's like, that's the fire, you idiot. I'm like, oh my God.
I lived in Portland, Oregon for a year, and
Yeah.
they routinely had, wildfires out there. And I remember one day it was raining ash, and we didn't know what was going on for a while. And it did that for like a week because of a fire that was like 20 miles down.
Did you go outside like they did in Chernobyl? With the
Yes.
ash just raining
You're
down. Like,
I did because I didn't know what was happening. And I was like,
well, at
"What is
least it
this?"
wasn't Chernobyl, right? Like,
Right.
Yes. Oh, that's a good series, man. That's a good
so
series.
good.
Maybe that's why TJ
Yeah.
lost his hair.
Who knows?
Damn.
Only the shadow knows.